And
we are live.
we are on.
We are
And
on. Yep.
so
Hold on.
listen,
What
this
do we
is
have here? Hold on a second. Hold on. What do we have here? We just said we're live. Okay, this is a weekly podcast, but there's an extra brother on the show here, and this one ain't me. Like, what is going? We have a special guest teacher. What's going on, man?
well, listen, you tell me, because listen,
Oh
man,
my
you
gosh.
the last two guests the famous guests that we've had, you've brought them on. So like, I'm going to leave the
Oh
introduction
my
to you.
gosh.
So you do the introduction, Deval.
Okay, first of all, welcome to the Flixters podcast.
Yep.
If you haven't tuned in before, we talk about movies, TV, streaming, all of that lovely stuff. But today is a bit of a special one. We're going to give you a bit of the usual sauce, but we've got some extra special sauce on today's show. And we have the lovely Mr. Hainsley Lloyd Bennett on the show, actor, writer. You can probably, you can introduce yourself probably at this stage. Please introduce yourself to us.
Okay. For those of you who've never heard of me, the name's Hainsley Lloyd Bennett. I'm from Northwest London. I've been an actor for more than 10 years now. And yeah, I'm an actor predominantly, but I have written, have directed, I edit, I do. I've been involved in lots of different areas of the camera at different levels. And I also tutor as well now, so I have students and stuff like that. So I'm
fantastic.
I'm doing it all, yeah.
Gosh.
So yeah,
that is brilliant.
Teacher. Oh my gosh.
Yeah, exactly. We've got something in common. So listen, I mean, people are probably thinking, the people who are listening around the world, and like, they're probably thinking, well, hang on a second, what's going on over here? Like, because I had a few people message me and they were like, oh, are you going to get anyone else on? And I'm like, watch this space. So hopefully this will lead on to kind of like, more things, we get more guests, because we love talking about obviously the industry and the stuff that's out there, and we love speaking about films with people who make films. So Hainsley, you being on the podcast and you being on the show, and you being at on YouTube as well, like with the video that we put out and everything, I think it's great. People can hear your voice, hear your story, find out how you got involved in the industry, and act as kind of like an inspiration. And we kind of had Mohammed on the show as well, and he did that. But so we'll get to Hainsley, and we're going to get Ainsley's input on all the stuff that we speak about. But before we do any of all that, we've got to do something which is really important for us. We do this every single week on the show. We've got shout outs. So Deval, the shout outs, man.
Yeah, a couple of big shout outs today. One Ainsley knows very well. So the first shout out goes to Mohammed Kamel. You can go and check him out on Instagram, and that's I am Mo Kamel, so IMMOKAMEL, and he also a lovely guy, actor from London, and he was on the show a few weeks ago. I'm going to post some snippets actually of that show, as well as this show throughout the sort of next few weeks. But big shout out to him, lovely guy, just like Ainsley as well. Not just an actor, but he also someone who just loves the art. Someone who's a fan as well, and we love that. So big shout out to Mohammed Kamel. Next shout out goes to the 5Fs. The 5Fs is a channel on Telegram, part of AL Media, and the 5Fs, can I get it right this week, stands for fun, family, faith, finance, and Flixters.
Yes.
I just added that last one in. But yeah, go check them out on Telegram. It's so much great stuff that they produce every single week. We premiere our show on YouTube, 8 o'clock UK time, on their Telegram channel. So go check them out.
Yeah, and I just want to quickly mention with the 5Fs, they got in touch with us about a comment. So we spoke about Boy Kills World on last week's episode.
Yeah.
And
have you seen that, Ainsley? Have you heard that?
It's on the list.
I
like the Stars Guards. I'm a huge fan, so I love what he did in the last John Wick movie. So I'm interested to see what he does with this.
Yeah, exactly. And in the 5Fs, they were like, oh, because there was a comment about Samara. I think her name is Samara Weaving. Hugo Weaving's niece and everything. And they were like, oh no, she wasn't in the movie. She was supposed to be in the movie. So, and it kind of threw me off, because when you do an IMDb search, her name's on there. So I was just like, oh, right, she's in the movie. But anyway, so 5Fs, thanks for that. All right, so let's get into movie news. We're going to keep the movie news a bit brief on this week's episode. So obviously, as usual, every week, lock in the Flixters, download us on wherever you get your podcasts, on YouTube, hit us up on Instagram. and keep in touch with us. Let us know what you're watching, actually. If there's a
Yeah.
movie that you want us to watch or make a comment on, get in touch with us. Let us know, because we love chatting with you out there in the world, wherever you are. All right, so Deval, movie news and Hainsley. Let's start off with this one. So pretty big casting rumor. Maybe it's official, maybe it's not, but Fantastic Four, we know it's coming. Marvel, the MCU, they released a picture a while ago, and we had kind of, Pedro Pascal, he's going to be playing Mr. Fantastic. Vanessa Kirby, she's going to be Sue Storm. And now the rumor is, or confirmation there, that Ralph Ineson, British actor, we've seen him in Game of Thrones, we've seen him in The Office, the UK version, is going to be playing Galactus. Now, I mean, this is pretty big, right? So where are we on this, Deval and Hainsley? I mean, what do you reckon? Ralph Ineson?
Are you a Marvel man, Ainsley?
I am a Marvel man. Yeah.
Yeah.
I think, wasn't he in something? I feel like he was in maybe
Guardians.
Yeah, he was in Guardians of the Galaxy. Yeah.
One of the Ravagers.
That's right. Yeah. How do I feel about it? When it comes to casting news, I try to exercise some patience, because until you see the vision of what they're going for, you can't fully understand what it is they're trying to do. So I try and hold off, especially even when they announce people, when they show stills or, set photos. I'm like, because once they put the grading on it and all of that and put it in a track, it looks completely different. So I always have some patience and trepidation before I cast judgments, but I still cast it tentatively anyway. So with him, I mean, Galactus is a character that is known, but isn't definitive in people's minds that you can get it right or wrong. So, and we haven't seen a live action version of him. He was a cloud in the original Fantastic Four movie, didn't speak, didn't have a face. He wasn't Galactus. He was just like a cloud. So I'm open to interpretation on this.
Let's hope they don't just put a cloud with just like Ralph's
exactly
or something like,
Yeah, I think it'll be the actual Galactus.
You know what?
Yeah.
And what I love about having people like yourself on, like, because you've got the experience and the background that we just don't have. And you've, even the way what you were saying just now, I had to shut up and listen. Like the way you're talking about it, about the casting and so on, it just comes from a different angle, and it's so insightful. I really love it. So thanks for that, Ainsley. I definitely, just like you said, I mean, I'm also going to just hold out my excitement a little bit, but at the same time, this guy, I love his voice. This guy, he's got such a powerful voice. Everything I've seen him in, his voice just carries such weight that I think for Galactus, whatever he looks like or whatever, he needs a voice that can just. So I'm glad about that. About that. But again, with Marvel, how it's been recently, because I'm really, really madly into my Marvel, and I think recently I've not really had the same happiness, if I can put it that way, for Marvel that has been in the past. But I'm going to hold out and see what happens with this one. But fingers crossed.
And just on that, I mean, on this show, we kind of speak a lot about the villains. Obviously, we've got the heroes. We love the heroes and everything. And for Deval and I, and for people who listen, to the show, we've always been about, great villains as well. You can't just have kind of like fantastic heroes. Thanos, brilliant villain. It was really great. Killmonger, really loved him. So I don't care who you get as Galactus, just make sure it's well written and give us a villain that we can be like, wow, this villain's got layers. It's just like, not just like, black and white, he's like this and he's like that. Give us shades and we'll be happy.
I like a villain where, like you say about the shades of grey, I do like villains where some of what they're doing I kind of believe in. Do you know what I mean?
I think it's actually a misframing, Ron. I think this is what's interesting. I think it's actually a misframing, and actors say this when they play villains. You don't play a villain because the villain believes that they're the hero of their own story.
Yeah, true.
So when it comes from a writing perspective, you should just write an antagonist who thinks that they are right.
Right.
Because anybody in history, you could look at as from somebody else's perspective as a villain. Somebody could have looked at Malcolm X as a villain.
Yeah.
In somebody's eyes, he was the villain. So
Mandela was
writing,
back in the day, wasn't he?
There you go. Exactly. So in somebody's eyes, he was a villain. So that's how you get really well-rounded nuanced characters because they have a cause that they believe in, but the way they go about it might not be palatable for everybody, and that's where they divide people. Even that's why we get anti-heroes.
Yeah.
You know, we get people who do heroic things, but the way they go about it, not everybody agrees with. So in some people's eyes, they're a villain.
Yeah. So Ainsley, like you've written stuff, right? So you've got experience in this field. So like when they're writing this kind of, and the writing process for kind of this Fantastic Four movie has probably been going on for like a year or months or whatever it is.
Yeah, long time.
So like, you know, obviously, you know, they have like several people writing drafts. They get a person to write a draft and maybe someone touches it up and everything. So what do you reckon? And I know obviously MCU, massive movie making machine, but what do you reckon they need to get right for this to be kind of, you know, a success, this villain or these characters?
What do they need to get right? From a writing perspective, I think the first thing they need to sort of kind of do away with is the template MCU humor. Because what happened is that the first wave of MCU movies, they were all, because they were figuring it out, they didn't have a template. So Thor was different to Iron Man, was different to Captain America. They all had their own mold, template, energy. The characters were vibrant. Then what happened was they started to fit into a bit of a formula, and they thought this is what's working. So they'd sneak humor into places that it wasn't really supposed to have humor, and they were smoothing out edges, and things started to become formulaic and generic. And then we'd always get this thing where the villain was just a different version of the hero. So, you know, in Ant-Man, we just had Yellow Jacket. And in Iron Man, we just had somebody else in a different type of Iron Man suit. And in Black Panther, we just had another person in the Black Panther. They sort of have this formula. So what I'd say for Fantastic Four is that wipe that slate clean and just make your own movie that fits these characters. I don't know what year they're going to set it in, but that I think will be pivotal in us understanding those characters. Because if they manage to ground them in the 60s somehow, and then they get pushed forward to our time, I think that's setting could really, that could really help them set up the world, set up the way the characters think, the way they interact with things, because they're from a different time.
Quirky sense of humor, from
exactly. This is it. Their sensibilities, everything will be different. And I think if you take that as the grounding for who they are, as well as understanding who they are from the comics, you can create something that just stands apart from every other MCU movie, and really understand, because it's the first family. It's what they're called, Marvel's first family, Fantastic Four. So if you understand the family dynamics and the personalities between them, and make that really deep and rich, then I think everything else outside of that can flourish quite easily.
Interesting thought, interesting take. So listen, look, folks, we will bring you obviously more news on that, and obviously as the months pass on, we'll probably get like snippets of information and kind of pictures and on-set photos and all that, and more casting rumors. So keep it locked with the Flixters. We'll bring you more of that. Let's move on. Now, we spoke about Baby Reindeer on last week's episode. This is blown up on Netflix, and there's kind of this constant flow of chit chat around the show, and politicians are kind of getting involved. But there's some controversy around this, Deval. Ainsley, have you seen this?
The show I have, I finished it last week, I think.
Yeah. So Deval, I mean, why is this in our news? Tell us about this.
I just thought I'd add it in because it seems to be another. Like the show is one thing, but it seems to be like it's its own beast. It's like it's created a massive conversation around obviously really important subjects of stalking, of legalities, and the truth, the so-called truth. The people say there's three sides to the truth. There's one side, there's the other side, and then there's the truth. And you've got to try and find what's going on here. But the show is really good. I finished it within one afternoon. And then following the show, now the real lady, her name is Fiona, I can't remember her surname, but the real lady who was portrayed in the show, who was a stalker, she's now come out. She was on Piers Morgan's show, and she's saying, she was saying that the whole thing's a lie, and well, not the whole thing, but she's saying pretty much 90%. yeah, 90% is a lie, and she's going to, take action against Netflix and so on. And then obviously the person that created Baby Reindeer, Richard Gadd, I think his name is, it's actually his real life, and he's saying it's obviously true. He's been on talk shows and stuff, so this is going to carry on. The conversation will just continue. But I want to know what the Flixters think. What do you guys think? Let us know. And obviously yourself, Hainsley, what do you think of this situation?
First, I love the show. Just got to get that out there. I thought the show was just a masterclass in all areas, from directing, acting, pacing. I love that it was half-an-hour episodes as well, so there's no fat on the episodes. I love that. It really made it bingeable. So just want to put that out there, that I love the show. In terms of, this is the danger when you say something's a true story, is that you sort of have to put caveats about what is embellished, because it's dangerous, because these people are still alive, all of them. Right. So if you're making something that's a true story and you don't make it clear what's been embellished or what's been slightly altered for viewing purposes, etc., you are leaving yourself open and liable for people to come back at you and say, well, this is wrong, this didn't happen, you are defaming me, etc. And he hasn't made it clear necessarily, he or Netflix hasn't made it clear what is true and what isn't, which leaves them open to this lady, because apparently they didn't speak to her about it either, right? So that leaves them open legally to her saying she can pick at anything, really. She can be like, you say it was 41,000 emails and I actually was 35,000, so that's wrong and I'm coming at you for that. That's what you've left yourself open for that. And apparently he didn't hide her identity very well. Apparently people found her really easily.
Oh, really? Wow.
Yeah, really easily. And
so she's probably getting harassed.
She's had people calling her, and I don't know if it was death threats, but definitely harassing her. And apparently there's a character in the show who he had an incident with, who was trying to make him famous. He was sexually assaulted by people, mistakenly contacted somebody about that and harassed him. So this is the thing. People, it's heavy. It's very heavy.
I wouldn't be surprised if kind of Netflix, they put out a disclaimer now, on the show, and just maybe adds a caveat to sort of stuff that's going on. But absolutely right, totally agree. But like Deval mentioned, what do the Flixters out there think about it? Have you seen the show? If you have seen it, let us know. I wonder what our listeners on the other side of the Atlantic, what they make of it, and kind of, because there's a lot of things in there which are very British as well. So I wonder if they
love it. I think they love it. The feedback so far is they've loved it. It's like it's like one of the top shows on Netflix.
Yeah, it was number one on Netflix. So
imagine that pitch. Imagine that pitch to Netflix. The guy is like, "Hey, look, I've got this story. I this was real. This is where I want to go with it." And Netflix are like, "Right, okay." And obviously, we all three of us, we're not naive. We know that the filmmaking and TV industry, they do embellish stuff. They kind of want to make things kind of interesting. So, like you said, which parts were kind of have they added the fat onto? So interesting. We will keep an eye on that. Now, listen, I want to just kind of finish off our film news with this one. I just found this really funny. Deval, I think it was last year actually, you reviewed this movie called Cocaine Bear, and and it kind of this low budget, but I mean this kind of really interesting premise, directed by Elizabeth Banks, and did really well at the box office. So it took a lot of money, and now we're getting this kind of influx of these movies like the Cocaine Shark.
Come on!
Yeah, so there's these other ones, and this one just caught my eye because this one is called Cocaine Werewolf, and
come on, man! Cocaine Werewolf.
Cocaine Werewolf. So check this out. The premise of this one is there's a film crew making a movie deep in the woods in Pennsylvania, and they disturb a werewolf. So the film crew have got basically they're working on a low budget horror movie. The film crew have got cocaine on them. The werewolf somehow gets hold of the cocaine and then literally goes berserk and just starts obviously going through the film crew. But listen, this is where we're at the moment with these movies. A really simple
It's
kind of
mad.
crazy premise.
Mm.
And we're now getting Cocaine Will.
The thing
Will
though,
Cocaine.
the thing I would give the original Cocaine Bear a little bit of respect for. I mean, it was an entertaining film. Don't get me wrong.
Mm.
I went in there just thinking, okay, this is going to be just fun. Don't take it too
Yeah.
serious. But remember, it did come from supposedly true events,
True events.
and that's where maybe they separated the true events and true story, because true events means like 10% of it can be true. Maybe I don't know what the legal term is, but true events means the whole thing isn't true. So they said true events, and it did happen. A bear did snort cocaine in real life, but it actually died quite quickly.
Yeah.
But the
Didn't
film
go
just
berserk.
took it on. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, usually they say, and this is what's interesting. Like, if you ever watched Fargo, I was ever watched that.
Thank you, Ainsley. Yes,
Yeah,
that
so-
show is wicked.
Exactly.
Yeah,
So what
yeah,
at the beginning of that show, they say inspired by true events.
Yes,
They don't say this is a
yes.
true story. They say inspired by true events. And that wording legally means that I'm already giving you license to say some of this is true, some of this is embellished, we've tweaked some of it, so no one can come at them. That this, to circle back, that this was Richard Gadd's issue and Netflix's issue, is that they just said true story.
Yeah, absolutely brilliant. Okay, go on, Deval.
I was going to say, now, Ainsley's mentioned such a good point, because on Fargo, it's almost like a legal statement. They even say some of the identities have been changed to protect they're really good. That's a really good point. If you ain't seen Fargo on Amazon, it's a really good show. Go watch it.
Go watch it. That's brilliant. All right, let's move on to new on streaming. So every week we bring shows that are streaming, that are there out there on the kind of Apple, Amazon, Netflix, and everything. On this week's episode, we're going to be speaking about Dark Matter. Now, this just recent released on Apple TV, and we've mentioned this on the show before, Deval, that kind of Apple TV, they're really kind of cornering this kind of sci-fi market of really kind of like, big budget, kind of well-crafted shows. We've had Silo, we've had Foundation. There's a show that you kind of spoke about, which was For All Mankind. So kind of like a good staple kind of shows. And this one, Dark Matter, is new. It stars Joel Edgerton, Aussie actor. And it stars Vision's
Jennifer
wife.
Connelly.
Jennifer Connelly, exactly.
Vision, who's Paul Bettany, born in Harlesden, Northwest crew. Thank you very much.
I'll join you.
Was born in Harlesden, so Northwest London guy as well. But yeah, this one I haven't actually seen it. I just popped it on here just to tell the people it's here, it's arrived. This show looks like it's going to be a really smart, sci-fi show. Like we said, like you just said, Apple have put on some really good TV shows, really good films as well. We're going to talk about Hijack a bit later on. We've got an actor from the show today, so perfect timing. But I don't know. Have you seen this one yet, Ainsley? Dark Matter.
I've seen the trailer for it. It looks good. I'm a Joel Edgerton fan. I think he's great. And Apple have been really making some amazing TV, and just the quality overall of the stuff they're putting out has been amazing. So I'd expect this wouldn't be much different.
Even Godzilla surprised me, actually. I was like, I wasn't expecting what I saw in the Godzilla TV show. Like, it was top quality. Godzilla, when he showed up,
They're pumping a lot of money into obviously new kind of TV shows, and it almost feels like as if they want to corner this kind of sci-fi market. And it's like, listen, come to Apple TV for high quality, brilliant stories, like sci-fi kind of, based shows. And I'm loving it. I'm brilliant. I'll be watching this, and this is definitely on the watch list. So that is Dark Matter, and obviously there's more shows that we're going to be speaking about, and we'll bring those to you on a future episode. But let's move on to new trailers. And the Flixters, like on this show, if you've been listening for a while, we're huge fans of kind of the the Quiet Place universe. John Krasinski, Emily Blunt. Kind of John Krasinski, he's directed this kind of really, another sci-fi movie, kind of, family orientated, and kind of the aftermath of this kind of alien invasion. And, there's brilliant little twists in there. So this one is called A Quiet Place Day One. So this is kind of literally, we're finding out what happened the day the aliens arrive, and the characters, we're following them, Lupita Nyong'o. We've got Jim and Honsu in there as well, which we've already seen from A Quiet Place Part 2. So this kind of goes back a bit. But yeah, man, I'm really looking forward to this. It's not directed by John Krasinski, this one.
No, it's Michael Sarnowski.
Mm.
But yeah, this trailer, day one, because I think the first one was like, the aliens are here, people
Yeah.
are living with them, and shit's hit the fan. I think the second one was even before that, I think, wasn't it?
It's
Yeah.
after.
Oh, is it?
after.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. And then this one's literally when they arrive. So it's interesting to see the different time frames. Have you seen this trailer? Ainsley?
I have
I'm
seen
pretty
that
sure you've
trailer. I've
it.
seen the first
Yeah.
two movies, which I thought
Yeah.
they're both really, really good. I wasn't sure
Yeah.
about the second one, but I thought it was a worthy continuation of the story, well acted. I thought it was very tight. And actually, usually I'm a bit like cautious about people. This is basically a prequel, so I'm usually a bit cautious about prequels. I was disappointed with like Prometheus and the like. I was like,
Okay,
that. But this one, I think it kind of warrants it. I kind of it makes sense because it's like we've seen it with how in the present day when these aliens are here and how people have to live. So I can see it could make for a very interesting type of thriller to see how they got here and what happened to make us get to A Quiet Place in the first instance.
Yeah. It's interesting. It's got John Krasinski. I think it's going to show up in probably a flashback. It's got Joseph Quinn, who we know from Stranger Things, and he's going to be Ben Grimm in the Fantastic Four. Yeah, a guy called Alex Wolff. We've seen him before. Do you remember Hereditary, the brother?
Oh my gosh! Don't say Hereditary, please. That's a film. Still unsettles me. Honestly.
Yeah. So the cast is looking great, and like I said before, Lupita Nyong'o. So we're going to probably see things from her perspective as well, because there's trailers that we've seen where she's kind of in the thick of it and driving along, and kind of we see all that sort of stuff. So looking forward to that. And apparently, we're going to get more. So this Quiet Place universe is going to expand even more, where they want to have a TV show. This may possibly could lead off into a TV show as well. So I think they're working behind the scenes. And I guess Paramount, they want this IP, right? So they want kind of, for the Paramount streaming service, I guess they probably want subscribers, and maybe this could be something that pulls them in. I don't know. Maybe we'll have to wait and see.
True that. Okay, interesting.
Yeah, go check that one out. So listen, look, normally we would kind of move into anniversary corner. We'd pick a movie from the last kind of 10, 15, 20, 30 years, but we're going to forego all of that stuff because with us, we've already mentioned this, we've got Hainsley, he's on the show, and we want to spend the next kind of, half an hour, 45 minutes or whatever. There's no time limit on this, Hainsley. So, if you want to speak, for as little or for as long as you want, that's no problem. We want to kind of get into this kind of, this idea of, how you got into movie making and kind of, what your inspirations were when you were growing up. What were the movies that you used to watch? And we kind of love kind of getting this idea of, who were your role models up on the screen or up on the TV screen, and kind of, what made you get into movie? Was it just pure luck? Was it a concerted effort? It was something that you were going for, that you made a decision. So now, let's move it on to you, and, we just hear your thoughts.
Right. I mean, where do I start? From what my heroes, or how I got in, or where do you want to take
how you got in?
Yeah,
I'll say how you got in. Yeah.
Yeah. So if we go from how I got in, so I think when I decided I wanted to be an actor, because I wasn't sure if I wanted to be an actor at first, because I just knew I liked performing. So I was like, I could be a presenter. I really liked presenting at the time. I remember MTV Select, Richard Blackwood, all of that stuff was really popular, and I was previous to that, I'd loved sort of comedy. I was like, maybe I could do comedy. So those sort of got to marry the two by being a presenter. But there's no real way to be a presenter. I was like, how do you become a presenter? What do you do? Like, there was no real way to get into it as far as I knew. So I studied a media studies course because my friend was like, just do a media studies course. You get to try all of the things out, see what happens. Yeah. And by far, the thing I was best at was acting. Like, it wasn't even close. I was pretty good at the other stuff too, but acting was by far the best thing. I did a short course at Hammersmith College for a year, and the teachers there were like, you've got something. Like, if we didn't know, we'd think you'd acted before. And I think that just came
Serious.
from my
That's
love of psychology. I studied psychology and English language.
Ah.
So I was always fascinated by people, and I grew up with a love of film anyway. So the three of those things meant I sort of had a natural handle on what acting was to some degree. So from there, I just needed to decide how I was going to go about getting in. I couldn't justify going to a big drama school. I think the prices at the time were between £3,000 and £6,000 a term, I think, for the top drama schools. And even then, I was always a very pragmatic, logical person. I was like, yeah, I can't balance that. I can't justify spending that much money. There must be another way in. So I went to a theatre school called Questers in Ealing. I'm from Wembley originally, so I went to this Ealing part-time theatre school. It was 9 hours a week, like £100 and something a term, and at the end of it, you get to put on shows for the actual theatre. So I got an agent from there, small agent, boutique, and then I just sort of built my way up from there. I started off in doing commercials, and then a line on EastEnders, and then a scene, and then do you know what I mean? And sort of built up incrementally over the years, and changed agents many times with each incremental move up in the ladder until I guess I'm at where I'm at now, where I can be a series regular in a TV show and do stuff for Apple and all the fun stuff.
And you mentioned, I mean, our audience is all over the world, and some people who are not maybe native to the UK may have heard you say EastEnders and not knowing what that show is. But EastEnders is a
Staple.
top UK. I still watch EastEnders today. I mean, I love EastEnders, and it's a top UK show. And I hear that lots of people that maybe come to this country, for example, and they want to learn the language and the lifestyle of the UK, of London especially, they watch EastEnders. So you may have had a part to play in someone acclimatizing into the UK.
It's a bit of a rite of passage. I think most actors have done one of the soaps, whether it be like Doctors, EastEnders, Casualty. The Bill. I mean, that's not on anymore, but the Bill at some point. Maybe Hollyoaks. Like most of my friends who are actors have done one of those because they get it's for those who haven't watched it. The show's on. I think it's 4 times a week now.
That's
4 times a week. So there's a lot of content they need to create. So it's good because new actors who maybe wouldn't usually get to be part of a TV show get a chance to at least do a scene or a small role in it, which can help their career immensely.
Yeah, brilliant. So what I got from that then, Hainsley, was kind of like, so when you were younger, so go back a bit. So like, when you were 15, 16 years old, did you have that did you have the acting bug in you? Is it something that you actively kind of thought about, oh, this could be a career for me? Or was it something that came later on?
It came later, actually, because in high school, I was awful at acting. It's funny. I was terrible. I think that's more to do with my personality. And I was a relatively shy child. As in, if I didn't know you, I was happy to be quiet. But as soon as I started talking to you, I was like outgoing. But I definitely wasn't confident enough to get up on a stage and like perform in that way at that age. And so because of that, and I didn't know myself, I guess, at 15, 14, I just wasn't very good at acting. I was better at music at the time. I used to play the drums. So it was only when I got a bit older, and I think I knew myself, physically, emotionally, psychologically, and took an interest in psychology and English and stuff. I think I just became a much better vessel for acting because I knew who I was. And so I could better perform.
Does your interest in psychology then help you when you're trying to understand the character's motivation and things like that? Do you think that sometimes helps?
I do. I think it's a mixture of understanding how and why people do the things that they do, but also it's kind of understanding archetypes and archetypal behavior. So, people fall into different brackets of personality, and understanding those brackets of personality and cultural archetypes and, job archetypes and country archetypes and all of these different things, the more you can understand the way people are culturally and psychologically, it just gives you what I say to my students, that it gives you a hook into understanding the person's personality. So we're all from London. If I said to you guys, this guy is from Brixton, he's working class from Brixton, we kind of have an idea, black working class kid from Brixton, we have an idea of what that person might sound like, what that person might be into, what their interests are, maybe what some of their socio-economic background might be immediately. You don't even have to really do any research, you just sort of got a loose idea. And I think if you have that understanding broadly, it just really helps you get into the shoes of other characters you're portraying, and then you can get really intricate and break them down beyond more surface.
That's really interesting. So with the roles that you've had over the years, have you how far would you go down the kind of rabbit hole of getting into the character, like method acting? Does that, for example, when you were on a Hijack, you played a police officer. Did you do any kind of, did you speak to any police officers? Did you kind of think, oh hey, you know what, I know that I can kind of maybe learn a bit more about where this character's come from if I actually find out more about
a ride along or something.
Ride along or something like that, or,
I think it's relative to, I guess, the context of the production and how big your role is. So sometimes in a production, your role is functional to the story. So it's not necessarily about you, but your role is functional to the story. So something like, what's that Jake Gyllenhaal and Michael Pena one? That film where they're playing
End of Watch.
End of Watch.
Yeah.
See, that's different because they're playing characters for an entire film, right? Who are, it's almost documentary, like where they're on the beat and they're talking to people and they've got draw guns and so they need to know specifically logistically what they're doing, how, what parts to, etc. For me, I'm in a few scenes and it's really about the story that I'm pushing the narrative of, as opposed to me personally. And there's a few things that you want to know, as in there's a tonality that police officers speak to people, the way they ask questions, I guess their physicality, their body language. So it's more, for this role, it's more the appearance of being a police officer. Maybe you can create a little bit of backstory, but then,
And interestingly, then let's flip the kind of question a little bit. Then, when you move on to something like Pennyworth, and obviously when you talk about appearance, you talk about kind of where the character is going. It's obviously there's more for you to bite your teeth into. Kind of like then now we're talking about an accent, and now we're talking about the way that the character dresses and the way that the physically. Kind of the way things change. So what was that process like? First of all, I want to ask you, like, what was it like kind of getting that, getting into kind of like the DC universe, the kind of the auditioning for that. And, are you a fan of DC? Are you a fan of kind of, Batman and that kind of whole world?
How did you react when you found out you got the role, man?
Well, firstly, I'm a fan of comics in general. So I just love good stories. So I'm not like a stan for either DC. If it's good, I'm watching it. I watched Spawn back in the day. Like, I don't I don't care. If it's good, it's good. I'm there. So in terms of the audition process, so it was a self-tape, and then it was a in-person audition, and then there was a chemistry test with me and the other actors. So it was 3 stages. But I mean, the Jack who plays the lead, he had 8 auditions, but he is playing Alfred. So they really tested, rightly so. They really put him through it to make sure he was the right person. But for me, it was 3 auditions. In terms of getting into character, I saw Ryan Gosling talk about this recently, and he was like, "I've never gotten into character before," and I kind of relate to that. And I'll explain what I mean by that. Is that all of the work I do is at home. So basically what I'm doing is I'm storing up and creating data for who I'm playing, and then I let it out on set.
Right.
Some people carry that data around with them all day, stay in it, which is fine, each their own. They stay in it because they need to stay in it to be able to, let's say, ride that wave, right? Whether it be an accent or an energy or a character or whatever. That helps them stay in that wave, so they need to stay in it. But that's not how I work. I do all my work on the accent and the backstory and character, whatever, and then it's stored in me. and then I go to set. And maybe before a take, depending on how heavy the take is or what it is, I might get into the zone, I don't know, 10, 15 minutes before we shoot. But I wouldn't walk around all day in character, in accent, to maintain that. That's just not me. That's not how I work as an actor.
Yeah, it's really interesting because you'll get kind of like, actors, famously Christian Bale. That's something that he does on a few of the movies that I've kind of seen and the interviews that he's done. And, he'll kind of like, even given interviews and everything, like, he'll have his American accent. I'm like, well, hang on a second. Like, this guy's from like what he's born. He's Welsh. He's like, British. Like, so yeah, it's really, really interesting. But that whole experience of working kind of in this DC universe, I mean, was it a positive experience for you? Was it, were there long days? What was it like kind of, on a show which people have a lot of love for? I mean, those
multi-episodes as well.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah, it was an amazing experience. For me, it was sort of like a childhood dream to some degree, because all of the things I love came together in one show. I love comic books. I love origin stories. That's one of my favorite things. So, when they did like Man of Steel, I was like, I love that because it's an origin story. You get to see, how this character started off. Batman Begins, love that. Get to see him traveling the world and learning crime, whatever. So with this, I was like, I'm getting to be part of an origin story of one of the most famous characters in comics, Alfred Pennyworth, butler to, Bruce Wayne. So that all of those things amalgamated was like a dream come true. In terms of working for Warner Brothers, DC, and all the rest of that, they were amazing. They were, really welcoming. And the creators, Danny Cannon and Bruno Heller, who made Gotham, were really easygoing and collaborative. And I think they kind of work from the adage that if you write well and cast well, most of the work's done for you. So they just really trusted that we do what we do. And I remember Danny Cannon said one day, he's like, look, we're gonna have a good time on this. As long as you guys know your lines, we'll be fine. And that was it.
Wow, brilliant.
That is so, like, I play a lot of football, and that to me sounds like, when you got a really good coach, manager, who just knows and trusts in your ability, and almost just says to you, express yourself. You know what you're doing, express yourself, and we will have a good result. It's almost like, and that makes you just want to, do you know what I mean?
Imagine, because, it removes any sort of external pressure or expectation, because it was weird for a production of that size, we never felt the kind of pressure that you might feel doing a show like that. So it was my first series regular. It was the first time being in multi-episodes of a show. And the budgets were huge. Like, we were shooting in East London, and we were going up to Kent, and we were on location, and there was guns and there was explosions and all of these, huge. Each episode was basically like a mini film, really. That's the sort of budgets. I think the pilot was like 6 million or something. It was a lot of money. But we didn't feel that pressure at all. We were we were just having a great time. And I think, again, that's down to the skill and the professionalism of everybody involved, and just the talent that was there. You choose the right team, and I think he really understood that. If you choose the right people to do it, that it sort of works for itself.
Yeah. I guess like kind of, the thing that I'm interested in, because like I'm like you, like big fan of the comic books, and doesn't matter if it's Marvel, DC. And I kind of went through this phase where I was like, look, we had the, Christopher Nolan Batman movies, and, loved those. And then we were like, well, okay, what's going to happen after that? And then we've got the Robert Pattinson, and, before that, even the Ben Affleck ones, which, a lot of people kind of didn't like. And, but now they look back on those kind of a bit more fondly and everything. So I'm really interested in kind of like, your take on kind of this whole idea of building these universes out. Pennyworth, had, was it 3 seasons that it was on for? I think it was, right? Yeah, it was 3 seasons. Yeah. They had Warner Brothers, they had Batgirl, which they spent millions on, and then they just decided, we're not gonna kind of carry on with this. We're gonna shelve that. and whether or not we get to see it, who knows, but that's not happening. Do you think that there's kind of, in the future, if they said to you, hey, look, Hainsley, we want you back, we want you to work on another project, and, this is what we're going with. If Danny ever kind of gave you a call up, is that something that you would do in the future?
Yeah, mainly because I trust their vision. I think they know what they're doing. Where it becomes difficult is that the studios and the creatives, i.e. the production companies that work for the studios, they're at loggerheads because the studios have to cater to a lot of voices, their investors and test screenings and all the rest of that. So that they're not creative in that way, are they? They're essentially, bank managers who give people loans to make projects that they oversee. Yeah. And the issue comes when usually there's too much studio interference with the artists. Yeah. That's when you get the flash, right? You get a movie that's made by committee, budgets are all over the place. We're trying to link it to a wider view. We're just spinning too many plates. Yeah. When really what you want to do is you want to do what, Denis Villeneuve did with Dune. Give the man the money, yeah. Let him go off and make the thing and trust that he's going to make the thing and make it well.
Yeah.
Yeah. Maybe check in on him, make sure he's staying within budget and he's doing the things he needs to do. Check in, but don't mess with his creative process. That's when you'll get good output.
Talking about The Flash, what did you make of that?
The Flash movie with Ezra Miller? Not a fan.
Yeah.
Not
yeah.
It's a shame as well because I think they could have done a lot better with it. I think probably I don't know what happened behind the scenes. We just don't know. But there was so much promise, and there were moments in it as well where I thought, they could have done something really good with this. The Supergirl in that film, I would really love to explore that version of Supergirl that landed in Russia, isn't it? I think it was.
Yeah, Russia, I think.
Yeah, and just it was a different version that obviously we haven't seen in live action in comics. They've seen that, but didn't really get to explore that, But maybe she needed her own film. It's a shame.
Yeah. So I think there's just too many ideas. Too many ideas going on in that movie. That's what I mean. That's a movie you can tell made by committee. Too many things going on.
Yeah. And the thing that annoyed me about that movie was the fact James Gunn, he was obviously, when that was obviously being released, he was announced as kind of with Peter Safran as kind of like, he's going to be the head like of the DC universe and whatever. He turned around, he said it's the greatest superhero movie. And I just thought, this guy has made Guardians of the Galaxy. So what? So I went into that thinking, what? James Gunn is saying that this is the greatest superhero movie. And I would just thought, wow, no.
That was a chess move. That was just a little move.
Yeah. So did Tom Cruise. Tom Cruise said it. Was it Tom Cruise? Someone random was like, it's great. I was like, bro, something's going on here. Like, Warner Brothers have paid some money. Like, now where James Gunn's concerned, obviously under contract, he has to make sure. Yeah, I'm sure somebody said, "Look, we've given you this deal. You're part of the new DC universe. You have to promote this film. We need the money. Just say it's great." And I don't reckon he would have done that otherwise. I don't reckon he would have said that. I don't think James Gunn would endorse a film that he didn't actually think he was good. And I don't actually think James Gunn thought it was good. I think Warner Brothers said, "Bro, you got to say
this."
Yeah.
100%. Absolutely. That's really, really interesting. And that kind of pops up, every once in a while, and people that I speak to, and they kind of have this thing. Well, DC. And listen, look, I got to say one thing. I was apprehensive about Robert Pattinson being cast as the new Batman, and you know what? I got to say, I really, really enjoyed the Batman. I just thought it was dark, brooding, it had the kind of, a lot of people said the pacing, they didn't like the pacing of it, but I thought with that character, it needs kind of room to just be able to just do his thing. And
it was a detective movie, isn't it? It's like Batman is the world's best detective. DC Detective Comics, I mean, that was going back to an era where Batman was a bit more brains than brawn, and he kind of showed that in that film. It was a different spin on it, which I appreciated, because sometimes when you get a lot of the same, sometimes you got to freshen it up a little bit. So it was
I'm
an
a
interesting
huge Robert
film. Yeah.
Pattinson fan. I've been a fan of him as an
Mm.
actor for a long time. So when he got cast, I was excited. I love Matt
Mm.
Reeves. I think he's brilliant. The Apes films,
Yeah.
the original one,
Oh,
bro.
great.
Those are 2 films that he did. They are
They're
incredible
brilliant.
films.
Yep.
Incredible. So when you put those 2 together, I was like, yeah, I'm involved. I'm gonna watch this,
Yeah.
Mm.
and
Yeah.
I love the Batman. I think it's
Yeah.
brilliant. And
Mm.
I'd put it up there. If I'm going to match it against Nolan's, I think it's better than Batman Begins.
Okay.
The first one. Okay.
Yeah, I think it's better than Batman Begins. And this is where I'm going to get into some territory, and your Flixters can get involved in this.
No,
But I'm going to get,
do it,
yeah,
man.
I'm
We
going.
do territory.
I'm going to get techie. Yeah.
Okay. All right.
Now, outside of in The Dark Knight is an amazing film, right? But the film actually isn't really about Batman.
Mm-mm.
Not really.
The
Joker made, there you go, he knows. The Joker made that film, right? And then the supporting cast were good. So Harvey Dent was good in it, and Jim Gordon was good in it.
Yep.
I wasn't a fan of the love story. I didn't really believe Rachel and them as a couple. I wasn't mad about that. And so there were elements of it that were supported really by Heath Ledger. Really. He made that film. Even Bale said he acted me off the screen there. And one of their things when making the Batman movies was, we don't want the villains to outshine Batman. Nolan and him said that. And unfortunately, that's what happened in that movie. Now I'm going to get to my point. My point is that the Batman as an ensemble movie, with Batman as the central protagonist, if we're measuring it by Batman doing what Batman does and it being about Batman, it's better than The Dark Knight. If that's the metric we're measuring it by, it's a character study of Batman and Bruce Wayne more so than The Dark Knight is. The Dark Knight is more a study on the Joker and the Joker's effects on Gotham City and the people within it, as opposed to Batman.
Yeah, no, I see your point there, and when you actually break it down and look at it that way, you kind of I see it in a different way. I think there's a few characters within the Dark Knight that I still can't. Well, actually, can I? Because the music on the Dark Knight. I mean, Hans Zimmer is obviously. I do remember the Batman having some good music and some really good. The cinematography, the lighting, a lot of the reds, the bit when the has that car crash scene with Colin Farrell.
That car scene, I'm telling you now,
deep,
that car scene will go down in
sound
history.
design.
I'm telling you.
When
he turned on that car,
when he turns, and he looks back and he's like, "Hey, I got you, Batman! I got you, Batman!" And then he just comes out of the burning plume.
It's the sound design for the whole thing. It's like the engine change, the sort of contact with the ground, and just.
Do you know what my in for that movie was this bit? You know, when there's a scene at the beginning of the movie where, there's these gang members, they're kind of like got, they've got the painted face, they're in the tube station,
subway,
they're in the subway, and then they start hitting on this guy, and then all of a sudden you just hear the footsteps.
I gotta watch this film again.
I had goosebumps, and then when he turns around and he says, like, "Look, I'm vengeance." Oh man.
I'm telling you,
seriously,
iconic.
That did it for me.
I'm telling you,
man. You've messed up my mind here, man.
I'm telling you,
you've messed up my mind.
It really was great.
Like this film, iconic moments. If you just think about it in terms of like some of the seminal, iconic, and you have to remember, he has to beat out a lot of people. He's got to beat with Michael Keaton's Batman. He's got to be Ben Affleck's Batman, and he's got to be Bale's Batman. And in one movie, he created seminal moments that can match any of them in one film.
It is good. He's got a lot of talent. Listen, let's move away from Batman for a moment. I want to speak to you about We've spoken about Pennyworth,
Yeah.
which is great. We've spoken a little bit about Hijack, and we know that you've done kind of theatre work as well, Othello, and you've written and you direct as well. But I do want to ask you about Tehran. Now, Tehran, for people who don't know, this is an Apple Plus TV show, and it was one of the first ones. I remember I got this, Apple TV free for 3 months, and there wasn't that much on there, and then this thing popped up, and I was like, what's this show? I love, just to preface this, I love spy thrillers. I love the whole espionage, genre, Homeland, just kind of there's a British one as well, kind of like Slow Horses as well, which I like as well. And then this thing popped up, and I just thought, wow, this is really interesting. And so that was all great. So tell us, like, how did you get involved with this, and were you a fan of the show? Had you seen it before? And what was your kind of whole take on that?
So I hadn't watched the show before. I'd heard of it, but I'd never watched the show before. And it was just like most things, you get offered a self-tape to play a character in the show. And so I decided to watch some of the first season and, sort of delve into it a bit more. And it was an amazing experience. We shot it in Greece, which is doubling for Tehran. And I've never been to Tehran in Iran before, but apparently everybody says it looks true to form. The directors are great. It's one of those things when you're working on productions of that level, just like working on Pennyworth, everybody's just masters at what they do, and they just trust that you're going to be able to do what you do. And so that was pretty much my experience there. And I got to work with Hugh Laurie, who I grew up with.
Yeah, I've heard, casting rumors, So this is confirmed now. Ainsley's confirmed it.
So so it was amazing. It was just an amazing experience, and something that I will take with me going forward as an actor, getting to work alongside somebody who's as much of a veteran and a lovely human as him.
That's brilliant. That's absolutely fantastic. When is do you know where, can you say when this is
I don't know when it's out. I thought it was meant to be out last year, I think, but I think there was a writer's strike and a couple of things happened. So I'm assuming it will be this year, but I've been looking online and
I've been looking online, and it just doesn't kind of there isn't anything on there, but I do know it's definitely coming up on there. So in terms of kind of, I want to kind of circle back a bit, your inspirations, like who were the people that when you were starting out in acting, and even now, who are the inspirations for you? Who did you look up to? And, is there a performance that you thought, you know what, I get that performance, I see that performance, and that is something what I'm going for, or I just want to kind of get a slice of that and, go, move forward with that. Is there anything out there, or anyone out there that you...
Starting out, I was inspired by Leonardo DiCaprio. He was the reason I started acting. Really. He was the first person I watched and sort of mimicked, and was like, we didn't even realize I was doing it. So him, Colin Farrell, was definitely that sort of came full circle because I used a monologue from Phone Booth. I don't know if any of you have seen Phone Booth. I used a monologue from Phone Booth to get into Questers, and my first film role was in a film with Colin Farrell and Ray Winstone. So it sort of came full circle, which was amazing.
That is crazy. Fate.
It was insane. So Colin Farrell, Leonardo DiCaprio. I'm a huge Shia LaBeouf fan. Always been a fan of his. Jake Gyllenhaal, I love. Guy Pearce, Andrew Garfield. Who recently I watched Snowfall. I've always liked Damson anyway. After watching Snowfall, I was just like,
he's gangster. I heard a lot of them didn't realise he was from the UK till the rap party of season 1. Not a lot of them, but some people didn't realise until the rap party of season 1. Then he spoke with an English accent, and they were like, "Huh?
What a performance! Damn, wow,
good show as well.
Amazing,
definitely." Wow, Good list there. Very good list.
That is a fantastic list.
Yeah.
So I guess what we want to probably know, and probably what the listeners want to know, is, I mean, where can we see you next? Like, we know that Tehran's
Can you tell us?
Can you tell us if there's anything else that, you're working on? And you mentioned about the teaching, like, how does that fit in with kind of like, your acting work? And, is that another source of inspiration for you? Like, how's that getting on?
Yeah, so I'll touch on the teaching first. So the teaching's something that I did. It was slightly after lockdown. I think I started doing that as I just thought people sort of come to me anyway. All my friends sort of come to me for like help with their self-tapes and feedback and all the rest of that sort of thing. And I've always sort of done directing. I thought, well, how can I sort of give back, I guess, while supplementing income, I guess. I was like, you know what, I do teaching. And that's been going really, really well. And I love doing it, and I love seeing people flourish. And these are people who have been veterans in the industry who've come to me versus people who are completely brand new. So that's been like a real inspiration for me, and I love doing it. In terms of work that I've got coming out, so hopefully Tehran will be out this year, fingers crossed. I've got a video game coming out this year that I can't talk about, annoyingly. They're really up on the NDAs for that. So as soon as I'm allowed to, as soon as I'm allowed to talk about that, I will. I'll be more than happy to come back and chat to you guys again.
Brilliant!
When that's happening. But yeah, that will be out. I worked on that for 2 years. It was my first video game. I did motion capture, and it was amazing. So that will be out later this year. It's a huge open world.
Do you know what? Funny thing is, sorry to interrupt you, but we speak about sort of music, movies, and video game industry a lot on this show, and a lot of people don't realize that the video game industry is actually worth more than the music industry. So music and movies industry put together. Yeah, it's a crazy, like successful, lucrative industry, but also the way video games can leak into being movies, and then the soundtracks, so the whole thing can really,
it's all
be a family. It's all synced. So I think that's great. It's great work. I can't wait.
I've got a so that will be out at some point this year, maybe later this year. And I recently shot 2 TV commercials. Nice. One for breast cancer, which will be pretty powerful, so that should be in cinemas and on TV at some point. And another commercial for, I think it was for Vax Hoovers, so nothing like outright outrageous, but the narrative behind it should look amazing. It's this sort of time lapse house thing, which should look really amazing. So I'm looking forward to both of those coming out. And other than that, I'm just auditioning as all actors are at the moment. To get my next big series regular role. But some things hopefully coming up in the pipeline. So fingers crossed for all that. Wow.
Exciting stuff. Exciting things coming up.
It's been a good show, I'm telling you, man. This has been a good show. I don't think it's been an organic conversation. We've spoken about our regular things as well, but also we found out a lot about not just about you, but why you are who you are, how you got to where you are, what your hopes and dreams are, and also just this is really good inspiration for other people who may be listening, who may also, even if they're not into acting or performing, but whatever you are into, it takes hard work. It takes you got to strive. You got to be in the right environments. You got to keep going, and look, this is what can happen. So it's really, really, really good to hear you speak about your passions and just see how it's actually translated onto the big screen. It's been a privilege, man. Honestly,
thanks, man. I appreciate you guys having me on. I love, as I said, I'm a fan first. Love talking about this stuff. And I'll be more than happy to come back whenever you guys are willing to have me. I'm sure I'll have lots more news to tell you the next time I come on as well.
Definitely.
Absolutely.
I know,
just before you go, I just want to say, like, before you kind of wrap up or anything, I want to find out what's on your watch list. What are you going to be watching over the next week?
What am I going to be watching? So I mean, Deadpool and Wolverine is up there on the list. Right? Yeah, that's. If I'm only going to see one film in the cinema this year, that's got to be it. I'm currently watching. I just watched Dope Sick actually. Which is now
really good.
The iPlayer.
Really good. Michael Keaton,
brilliant show. Absolutely love that. And I'm watching Shogun at the moment, which is like
Hainsley, you're speaking my language, man. Literally, I'm on episode 7 at the moment.
Yeah, I'm currently on 3 or 4, but it's like
really good show, man.
Amazing. And then The Bear season 3 is coming out. End of June.
I love that show.
So
I'm behind.
That's on the watch list. So
you got to watch this. Honestly, like there's Boiling Point and there's The Bear and like
and the boys season 4 coming out as well. Yes.
The trailer. You've seen the trailer, obviously.
The trailer as well.
Yeah. About it.
Oh my gosh, you're just like us. You're literally the same things that we like. You like as well. So you're among family, man. You're among family, man. Anytime you want to come back. Yeah. You're home. No invitation needed. Just say,
just come in. Just
I'm coming this time.
I talk about this and oh gosh,
wicked.
Oh wow! But yeah, honestly, it's really, really great to have had you in the show. And again, we've got to do this again soon sometime.
For sure. I'll hit you up and we'll do it again. Yeah.
Definitely.